The New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and New South Wales farmers have enjoyed a long history of close relations. Next to the lectern is Tim McRae, Group Director of Economics and Analysis at New South Wales DPI. In leading DPI's efforts to analyse and monitor New South Wales primary industries' performance, innovation and identifying new opportunities across traditional and new sectors is a key focus for his team. Prior to joining New South Wales DPI, Tim had a range of experiences from private consultant, agricultural lecturer and researcher, along with an extended period as Meat and Livestock Australia's chief economist. Tim has a bachelor degree in agricultural economics and a Masters of Rural Management from the University of Sydney. Please make welcome Tim McRae.
Thanks for that, and I'm going to get cracking because I know we're tight on time, but it's always nice to have people walking into your presentation than walking out. So look, what I've got to present today is a piece of work that's been 2 years in the making has been engaged by Deloitte and ourselves to look at where the opportunities for New South Wales agriculture are, but not particularly looking at them from the demand story that we know so well and that holds together so strongly, but looking at them from the point of view of what influence can government and the role of government have on making sure these opportunities are fulfilled. There'll also be a document that, due to printing timelines, has only just been finalised, but we'll make sure that that is publicly available for anyone who'd like more detail that this presentation gives. So look, the piece of work that we engaged Deloitte to do analysed 24 sectors across 3 key criteria. We looked at the biggest sectors, which all of these are very familiar and have a very loud voice across the industry. We looked at which industries and which sectors had the strongest demand. And you can see there that the first one in the line is livestock for meat, and we all know how that's performing at the moment. But particularly the area I'm going to focus on later in the presentation is where the strongest advantage lies for New South Wales, and the 24 criteria that advantage was looked at to see where the government can play and adjust levers to make sure that opportunities are realised by those who have got a commercial interest in making sure things improve. And then ultimately look at where the strongest combination are of those industries, and by no means is that a list of the winners or the industries that have the strongest outlook. It's just the ones that had the best combination across those 3 factors at the point in time. So as I said, when we looked at the biggest sectors, the big contributors are very well known. But I think one thing to highlight out of this is the importance of the food processing industry. It alone is the same size as all of the other agricultural sectors put together. So whilst livestock for meat, cereals, agri tourism, wine, wreck fishing and cotton, you could acknowledge as the big boys, food processing is also a massive contributor to the economy and the pull-through effect it has on commodities and prices received by producers. As I said, we also focused on the demand outlook, and I'm not going to touch on that because I'd need 3 hours to talk about that. But there is plenty of work that has been done. You'll probably hear more presentations or talks about this over the next few days, but they are highlighted, they are well known. It is from China to India to the US to the Middle East. The demand opportunities are huge for those countries or those markets or commodities that have the ability to tap into them. When we looked at those demand drivers, we looked across economic, social and environmental aspects that all converged into 4 megatrends. And particularly when you look at those megatrends, and particularly what's been going on in the media in the last few weeks, those social drivers are becoming increasingly important. But we look at growing aggregate demand for Australian food and fibre, increasing the demand for food and fibre that is ethically produced and environmentally friendly, the shift towards high-protein, westernised diets, and the final megatrend was growing demand for food that comes with guaranteed quality, safety and security of supply. And that's probably the main one that I'll talk about later, because when we look at the biosecurity and the role of government that we have, that's one area that is crucial to underpin. How was the competitive advantage assessed? So a major part of the report that we looked at with Deloitte was what are the advantages that New South Wales has, and what are the levers that the New South Wales government, or DPI in particular, can lean on, push or pull to make sure those opportunities are fully realised. It was across 6 broad categories, from macroeconomic factors through to innovation, natural resources, access to markets, cost of supply and infrastructure. And as you look at that list of 24 there's ones that you can see that DPI and the government has a key role in making sure are met and met to best practice, like research, development and extension. However, unless I'm unaware of some R&D projects are going on, the ability to influence rainfall is not yet in DPI's agenda. So where were the competitive advantage for New South Wales? Well, we know where it's not. Unfortunately, it's not in rugby league and it's not in rugby union. But maybe years come around quickly. But where we did have an advantage for industries, and when we looked at those 24 factors, it was interesting to see that the biggest advantages that came out was for the oilseeds industry, again, food processing, agri tourism, a $2.3 billion industry that revolves around tourists coming into Sydney and getting out within a 1 to 3 hour drive. Agri-tourism is defined as any time someone travels with an express intent to purchase wine or food. Most times I travel, I do purchase wine or food, but that is not the whole sole purpose of the trip. So when we look at agri-tourism, it's a large sector. It is larger than the cotton industry. But we look at it from the point of view of where is the role for the government to help that capture all the benefits it can. Oysters, sugar and cotton. But we're not picking winners across those industries that have the strongest competitive advantage. There's potential across every industry that we look at. There's 24 industries there, and all of them have different opportunities, different advantages, and different market dynamics that are changing on a day-to-day basis. But when we look at the strongest combination across opportunity, size of the industry and demand, there was 7 industries that stood out when this report was finalised in March this year. And again, it was oilseeds, recreational fishing, legumes, agri-tourism again, other aquaculture, livestock for meat and plantation timber. So when we did the report, and again, as I said, this is not about identifying which industries to get behind, but there was some that certainly had a better outlook than some others. So when we look at the role of government, and mine particularly up here, kicking off this session, what factors of advantage can the government focus on? As you remember, there was 24 on the previous slide, and I said we can't influence rainfall yet. But the high influence that the government and DPI can look at, education and training, which is already a massive focus of what we do. Research, development, extension, the largest proportion of our budget annually. Product differentiation, encouraging products to come to market in a different way and helping producers to do that. Biosecurity, if we don't have strong biosecurity, we don't have export markets. Trade barriers and access to markets, whether that's working with the federal aspect of access to markets or working within the constraints of businesses to how they can access markets. Also looking at regulatory burden, and also innovation is a huge part of where the government can focus on to make sure these opportunities are met. So when I looked at the key results of what came out of the report, there was 3 main take-homes. That the levers for the New South Wales government to influence agribusiness prosperity rest more on moving the factors of advantage that I just talked about on the previous slide than influencing the drivers of demand. In other words, worry about what we can do and improve those. 2, there are greater economic gains from improving the intermediate input costs to agriculture than large improvements to demand factors. Again, concentrate on what we can control and improve those. And finally, the last key factor that came out of it was that the economic gains from improvement to the costs of inputs to agriculture flow through and are largely positive through the whole economy. Whereas the rising Asian demand for agricultural production is more mixed through the economy and has much more targeted results. So again, those benefits that are achieved through the improvement of inputs are wide-ranging and impact the whole economy, which is certainly a positive story for agriculture, compared to the outlook where we focus on individual markets, because that pull-through is very much winners and losers through that. So how does DPI ensure that the opportunities are delivered? As per our strategic plan, we've pinned our ambition to the post, if you like, and are looking for a 30% growth in primary industries by 2020. That equates to $3.5 billion improvement over a 6-year period. Currently, we've had some increases over the last 2 years of 15%, but continuing to look to build the value for the industry. But in the end, DPI, we don't sell anything and we don't grow anything. But it's through working with the partnerships of the commercial organisations, the New South Wales farmers, to make sure that those levers that the government has access to pull are the ones that we're pulling in the right way, that make sure that things can be done better and make sure the opportunities are realised. Thank you.